Most men think a hug is just a hug, a polite gesture, a friendly greeting that begins and ends without meaning anything beyond the social obligation it fulfills. They have absolutely no idea that within that brief moment of contact lies one of the most powerful levers for genuine human connection that exists. And when a hug is executed with awareness, with specific intentional elements that speak directly to her nervous system before her conscious mind has had any chance to analyze what is happening, it becomes a nonverbal conversation that builds attraction faster and more deeply than words ever could. Today, we are breaking down 4 rules that transform a simple embrace into something she will still be thinking about hours later. Not because of anything dramatic or obvious, because of the quiet, precise details that most men never even consider. But first, the fundamental mistake most men make. They believe touch is just touch. Physical contact is physical contact. A hug is a hug. What they do not understand is that touch is a language, one of the oldest and most sophisticated languages human beings possess. Her nervous system is continuously translating every element of physical contact into emotional information. The pressure of your hands, where they are placed, how long the contact lasts, how it ends. All of it is being processed below the level of conscious thought and converted into feelings of safety or discomfort, of strength or hesitation, of genuine presence or anxious performance. Master this language, and you communicate something on a level that words simply cannot reach. Get it wrong, and you communicate the opposite of everything you intended. Here are the 4 rules. The first rule is the anchoring palm, and where you place your hand is your opening statement. Most men instinctively go for the upper back. The shoulder blades. Maybe a brief pat that communicates warmth without intimacy. And while there is nothing wrong with that in the right context, it is the vocabulary of friendship. It is the physical equivalent of a handshake, perfectly acceptable, completely forgettable, and entirely incapable of creating the kind of impression you are looking for. The powerful move is to anchor your palm with calm confidence on the lower back, specifically just above the tailbone, on the lumbar curve. This is not an arbitrary preference. This is a neurological reality. This area of the body is deeply connected to feelings of stability, grounding, and physical security. When your hand rests there with genuine assurance, not tentatively, not with a nervous light touch, but with the quiet confidence of a man who is completely comfortable in the moment, it bypasses her conscious analytical mind entirely and speaks directly to something older and more instinctive. That it communicates masculine presence, that it communicates that you are someone who can hold space, literally and figuratively. It says without a single word that she is safe in your proximity. And safety, on a primal level, is the prerequisite for everything that follows. You cannot build attraction without first establishing that foundational feeling of security. The anchoring palm is how you establish it before either of you has said a word. The second rule is unwavering containment, and this is where intention meets physics. That a hesitant hug broadcasts something she feels immediately, even if she cannot name it. A loose embrace, arms that barely make contact, a touch so light it communicates uncertainty. All of it registers as insecurity. It feels like you are asking permission to be there rather than simply being there with confidence. And insecurity, no matter how carefully hidden in words or behavior, is felt through touch with extraordinary clarity. Your embrace should be a confident enclosure. Firm, consistent pressure that creates a genuine sense of being held rather than merely being touched. Not crushing, not aggressive, but solid enough that she feels your frame around her rather than simply your arms near her. There is a specific sensation, rare and deeply comforting, of feeling genuinely held by another person. Of feeling momentarily contained by someone else's physical presence in a way that communicates, I have you, and nothing about this moment needs to be managed or worried about. Most people go through large portions of their lives without experiencing that sensation from another adult. When a man creates it, calmly, confidently, without any edge of neediness or performance, it produces an immediate comfort response that is difficult to consciously explain and almost impossible to forget. The quality of that enclosure is entirely within your control. It comes down to intention and the willingness to be fully present in the physical moment rather than hovering somewhere outside it wondering how it is landing. The third rule is alchemical duration, and timing is your silent chemist. A hug that lasts 1 or 2 seconds is a handshake with arms. It fulfills a social obligation and disappears immediately from memory. But something shifts in the window between 5 and 7 seconds. This is where oxytocin, the neurochemical most directly associated with bonding, trust, and emotional connection, begins to release in meaningful amounts. Her nervous system has time to register the contact, process the safety signals your presence is communicating, and begin to actually settle into the moment rather than simply passing through it. Here is what most men do instead. They reach the 3-second mark, feel a flicker of internal panic. Am I overstaying this? Does this seem strange? Should I pull back? And they break away. And that hesitation, that rush to exit before the moment has had time to fully form, is felt. It communicates uncertainty. It communicates that you yourself were not entirely comfortable with the closeness. And comfort is contagious in both directions. If you are not at ease, she cannot be at ease. Hold for 5 to 7 seconds with calm, unhurried presence. Let the world outside the embrace recede for that brief window. Allow the shared rhythm of breathing to synchronize. Let her nervous system settle into the contact rather than simply registering it and moving on. That suspended moment, that pause where the ordinary rules of rushed social interaction stop applying, is where casual touch becomes something she actually carries with her afterward. It is the difference between a hug she immediately forgets and a hug she finds herself thinking about later without entirely understanding why. The fourth rule is the lingering signature, and the release is not an end. It is your final statement. Most men break away abruptly. The moment ends, and they simply step back, separating cleanly and completely. And while there is nothing wrong with that mechanically, it misses one of the most powerful elements of the entire interaction. The final touch is often the one that lingers longest in the mind. The last sensory impression of a moment is frequently what the memory returns to. And that final impression is entirely within your control. As you gently draw your torso back, unhurried, without any sudden movement, let one hand glide with deliberate slowness along her arm. Or let there be a brief, light, respectful brush at the nape of her neck or along her hair as you part. This is not a grab. It is not an escalation. It is a whisper of contact, so light it might almost be questioned, so deliberate that it cannot quite be dismissed. The neck and the nape carry one of the highest concentrations of nerve endings on the body. A fleeting, respectful touch there as the embrace concludes leaves what might be described as a phantom sensation, a sensory echo that remains on the skin after contact has ended. Her mind will return to that final touch. It will replay the moment. And in replaying it, the entire embrace is relived, the anchoring palm, the solid enclosure, the unhurried duration, and the quiet punctuation of that final trailing contact. That is what makes an ordinary moment extraordinary. Not one dramatic element, but the accumulation of 4 quiet, precise, intentional details that together create an experience her nervous system files as significant rather than routine. Now understand what this means at a deeper level. The gap between an average man and a man who creates genuine lasting impression is almost never found in grand speeches or dramatic gestures. It is built in these precise, almost invisible details. The placement of a hand, the quality of pressure, the willingness to hold a moment without rushing away from it, the deliberate nature of a final touch. These details speak directly to the part of her that processes experience before language has any chance to intervene. And that is why they work in a way that words never quite can, because they bypass the analytical mind entirely and communicate to something older, more instinctive, and more honest than conscious thought. Use this with genuine respect. Use it only when there is real connection and real interest on both sides. Because the power of intentional touch is not in the technique itself. It is in the authenticity behind it. A man who is genuinely present, genuinely confident, and genuinely interested in the person in front of him does not need to think about any of this mechanically. He simply needs to slow down, be there fully, and let these natural principles express themselves through who he already is. That is what transforms an everyday gesture into something neither of you forgets.